Hello, everyone. Welcome to Conscious Conversion. I am thrilled to have you here as always, and I hope that this podcast finds you well, finds you and your family in a good place as much as possible, and that y'all are taking good care of yourself. Today, I have a beautiful guest named Lisa Erickson, and her work, the work that she does is very resonant with my background. And you'll know why momentarily. When I give you her bio, you'll see why. I used to work in women's trauma, domestic violence, sexual violence, and these things. And this is very, very, very important work that you're doing, Lisa. So Lisa Erickson is an energy worker specializing in women's energetics and sexual trauma healing, and the author of Chakra Empowerment for Women from Llewellyn Publishing. She helps women maximize and balance their energy during key life transits, such as pregnancy, postpartum, perimenopause, and menopause, including balancing the mother-child energy line. She also works with women to heal from sexual abuse and assault. She is certified in mindfulness meditation, trauma sensitivity, and a variety of healing modalities. She's a practitioner with the Breathe Network, a nonprofit designed to supporting holistic healing for sexual trauma survivors. And she's passionate about helping women connect with their energy bodies. This is so important right now for a variety of reasons. For one, we are all collectively going through a trauma right now. And so as much as possible, that we can emotionally release that trauma and continue to move through this, I think is critical for our collective evolution. And the fact that you do this work with women, sexual survivors of trauma, is just freaking beautiful. So I'm really grateful for the work that you do, and I'm excited to have this conversation.
Thank you, Sarah. I'm thrilled to be here.
Mm-hmm. So I always like to start going as deep as possible just to open it all up. Mm-hmm. What kind of impact do you want to have over the course of the next 5 years?
I want to continue to empower the divine feminine, really. I think that's the essence of my work, is bringing forth women's power in many different ways. But it's also about bringing forth feminine power within society and within men, because the way that we have kind of divided up traits, we haven't allowed men to own their yin. At the same time, we've been denying women their yang, right, and their yin. So it's really a cultural healing. It's a social healing. It's an energy healing at the matrix level, right? A very deep level at what defines this plane of reality, I guess you could say. So that's the big picture. Although I'm focused on working mostly one-on-one or in small workshops, it reverberates out because we're all connected. So that's what it is to me.
Oh my gosh, I love that. And I love the idea of finding this balance within each individual of that yin and that yang and that masculine and feminine. I think that's huge healing that I hope is happening on the planet right now, because we seem to be healing damn near everything right now. That's my hope.
Well, we're at least bringing it all to the surface. So then we hope we bring it to the surface to heal it. Right?
I'm an eternal optimist. I can't help myself. How has your work shifted in the last several months with everything going on in the world?
I was already working online, so really it didn't shift that much. If anything, it ramped up. I'm doing more sessions than I was doing per day. And so from my perspective, it's showing me the level of trauma and the shadows that are coming to the surface for everyone at this time. And there's this real urgency to lean in that I'm seeing in both long-term clients and new people that are coming to me. This real urgency to lean into change. And I think there's a lot of factors behind that. But that's really what I'm noticing more than anything.
Yeah. And what kind of people do you feel like really resonate with you?
I mostly work with women. It's about 75%. That's not completely the case. I also work with trans women. So when I say women, I do include trans women in that. And I think people who are open to the reality that everything is energy, and that working at that energetic level is kind of impacts us both physically and psychologically and spiritually, and that you're really trying to work holistically on all of those. And when you work at the energetic level, you impact all of those. And that whatever you're trying to do, whether you're trying to accomplish a goal in your life, you're trying to heal, you're trying to let go of something in your life, you have to work it at all those levels. It can't just be a mental process. It has to be deep energetically and in your body, really, to bring about this shift in vibration to really facilitate the change.
Wow. Well, I mean, I think that can go real deep when we're talking about what's happening in the world now too. So how would you sort of characterize what's happening in the world right now as it relates to those various levels and what we need to do in order to raise that vibration?
Well, I think, I'll speak right now, being in LA and being part of various protests that have been going on. For me personally, as a white woman, it's about recognizing the ways that I'm holding unconscious bias, right? And really facing those. And we hold those at an energetic level. So part of this work on that cultural basis is looking inward and facing the ways we might be holding things unconsciously. Now, when it comes to women's empowerment, same thing applies, right? And even as a woman, you're holding often conditioning from the patriarchy that is you're holding yourself back from that perspective. And I'm not trying to blame the victim when I say that. I'm just trying to say healing is not just about healing whatever trauma you have experienced by virtue of being an overt victim of the patriarchy in some way, experiencing harassment or oppression or abuse in some way. It's also undoing your own self-beliefs that have been shaped by it. And all of that is stored on various levels energetically. And you have to kind of get it all out there to own your full power. And in a way, you're trying to swim upstream. You're trying to shift your vibration into something that counters the dominant vibration out there. And then as more and more of that happens, it grows. It's like a virus that grows in a positive way as opposed to a negative way, right? Yeah. That totally, you're singing my song, man. I mean, I just feel like my job here, of course, I want to use my voice in the world for good. And there's all sorts of like tangible things that I believe that we should be doing, and especially those of us that are in a privileged place where we can. But also I think my job is to keep my vibration as high as possible, release any traumas I've got, clear my channel, feel the feels and keep raising it. Because I think those of us that are reaching higher sort of levels have more impact than we know on the rest of the planet. Yeah. It spreads, we connect, it spreads, and everything we create, right? Whether it's books, ads, workshops, carry that vibration. And so it really, I mean, that, it really is the internet, right? Is almost a representation of the energetic planes of reality, right? And it's like we're trying to just send light out into it. Yes. I actually had a podcast episode, a solo episode that went out a few weeks ago about that, about how the social media as a metaphor for the universe, like the algorithm of social media is a metaphor for the algorithm of the universe. So whatever it is that you're engaging with, whoever you're surrounding yourself with, whatever you're speaking about or commenting on, that's the thing that's going to keep showing up for you. Yeah. So yeah, I love that. And I also, what I hear too, is that social media can be used to raise the vibration of the planet. Absolutely. And while maybe a lot of us don't necessarily want to continue to fill Zuckerberg's coffers, I feel like we can utilize this medium. What I've been saying a lot lately is that we can use the master's tools to dismantle the master's house. Right. So we can use this medium, social media, we can use money and capitalism and reframe it, turn it on its head and do something totally different to create a new earth. That's right. Yeah. Love it. Love it. So what is interesting? Oh, sorry. I was just going to say what you really posed to me, because you said, how have things changed in the last few months in the context of the pandemic and more of us being home? If anything, right, connection through the internet has become even more pronounced, right? It's become even more people's lifeline. And so that means people are on it even more hours. There's even more capacity to share light through it and to spread light through it. Absolutely. Yeah. Right now there's a captive audience of people who are looking for leadership, and inspiration. Yeah. And resources. Yeah. Of all types. Yeah. So it seems that what you're doing is working. We talked a little bit before I hit record, and you said that you do a lot of your business growth and your creative endeavors is grown through organic methods. So how do you reach people organically, and what's working for you right now? Yeah. Well, in terms of my client session business, my one-on-one client energy work session business, that's grown over the course of about 15 years, pretty much exclusively word of mouth. I mean, I haven't ever advertised that specifically, right? Workshops that I've done over the years, I have that have been on women's empowerment or on sexual trauma healing teleseminars, webinars, etc. I have advertised on social media, also through Google Ads, in also print media, online, digital and print, to success. And then people will come out of those. But I think from a business perspective, what I was very fortunate to be able to do is to grow it organically over the last 15 years and pace it according to the ages of my children. And this is just one of those, I was very privileged to do that. I had a prior career in technology. I had saved a lot of money. My husband and I were in a position to do that. So I realized this was a privileged position. But I think what it allowed me to do was experiment. It allowed me to view abundance in many different ways. For me, 10 years ago, abundance was working half-time. So the other half-time, I was driving my kids to and from school. Now that they're teenagers, I'm working full-time, if not more. I'm working a 40-hour work, if not more, right? But I got to grow into that, and that's another kind of abundance. And because I took it slow and didn't count on this as my main source of income overnight, I was allowed to make mistakes. I was allowed to experiment. There's things I tried that didn't work. There's workshops that no one signed up for, all of that kind of stuff. But I learned from every single one of those experiences. So I really am an advocate for trying to create that space especially when you are approaching a healing business. Yeah, I think that's one of my main messages, if someone is able to do that.
Yeah, we were talking about that a bit before we hit record too, and that is that, overnight success is a very, very rare thing, right? And it does take time, and it does take perceived failure a lot of the time, and it is like the hero's journey. Mm-hmm. It's you got to walk through the fire.
Well, and it's interesting too, because you get visions, and what I find sometimes happens, because sometimes in the context of the women's empowerment work I'm doing, I am working with a woman I work with a lot of healers and spiritual people that are trying to create a business. I feel sometimes someone has a vision, and then they feel like if they don't manifest that exact vision, they've done something wrong. But so many times I've had visions that I worked towards, it didn't manifest in that exact way, but I can see now how working towards that moved me in a certain direction, right? So I think when we really have a vision of what we're trying to create, it is something we're reaching towards, but it's not necessarily, you have to be open to it not unfolding that exact way.
Manifestation 101.
Exactly. Yeah.
Totally.
People have a hard time with it,
Yeah.
And a hard time with adapting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it's all about the feeling that you want to have, and that you want to create for yourself. And for me, that's that was freedom, and joy, and fulfillment, and abundance. And I didn't necessarily know that meant that I would be living in Costa Rica. But I've got, no matter what happens with my business, I got a bunch of fruit trees here, so I am abundant.
Yeah. You're good. It's great because I love the chakras. I talk about the chakras. The upward path is the spiritual path, right? And that's written about a lot. But the downward path is that manifestation path. And when you talk about the energies, that's first. What is the vibrations that you want to be resonating with? That's what you're really trying to manifest. That's crown chakra. And then third eye is like the vision. The throat chakra is being able to communicate with others. Heart is being able to attract the network or the people that you need to work with, right? Navel's the actual getting it done. Sacral is what we were talking about. When obstacles arise, being able to adjust, adapt, and still stay true to the vibration you're trying to get, right? Adapt the vision. And then the root is birth. So I love to work with that model with clients in terms of manifesting that downward path.
I love that. I've never heard it characterized in that way. That is awesome.
Yeah, that's quick and dirty, but you can really see how you might get stuck somewhere, right? Some people are great at vision, terrible at navel chakra, right? Great at speaking, terrible at sacral, adjusting to obstacles, right? Everyone's different.
Yeah. So clearly what you're doing is working, and you're able to grow your audience. How do you stay consistent with your marketing efforts?
Well, I try to set aside, I have one afternoon a week that's supposed to be just for that. I think this is a growth area for me, so not always so consistent. But I try to, have daily social media posts, and in terms of marketing efforts, spend an afternoon a week focused on that. And it's interesting because right now with my teenagers home and school taking less time, I actually put them to work, and that was very effective. So a free captive workforce is also very effective. One of the pluses.
I love that. That's awesome. So how do you stay in alignment with your clients? How do you make sure that the things that you continue to offer them are going to resonate with them?
Yeah, I mean, I think the most important thing for me is my own alignment. I have a daily meditation practice. That's essential to me. I mean, I cannot do the work I'm doing if I don't have that in the morning. So that is essential to it. So it's really about, if I am in alignment with myself and I'm not clouded, then in a session, and I have a whole setup work like most of us do right before I get on with the client, right? That then I just let go and trust, right? So to me, that's what it's really about, is making sure I'm in the right place, and then I'll be resonating what I need to resonate for that particular individual. I'm not sure if that's what you were speaking to, or you meant more.
No, I mean, I think, okay. I feel like there's no right or wrong answer to these questions, but I really resonate with that answer hardcore, because to me, it's all about sort of being in alignment. For me, I feel like my business is channeled, like I started it 2.5 years ago, and it was born in a meditation practice, like the name of it,
there you go.
The name, the branding, the philosophy behind it. I mean, I don't know that I take credit for any of it. It's like it came through me. So what I do is in alignment for that reason. It's all in service to the planet and to humanity, exactly. Or at least I want it to be.
I love it. That's exactly how I view it too.
Yeah.
And then trying to view money within that context. It's just energy, right? That is flowing through us, and that's it. And a certain amount is used for our own self-care and life and et cetera. And then a certain amount may flow through us to other causes or things we care about. It's just liquid light. If we view it that way, we can have a healthy relationship to it.
I talk about money as energy all the time, every single day, but I've never called it liquid light. That's beautiful. Did you come up with that?
And you know what's so funny though? There's a lot of people that use the word liquid light for Kundalini, or sexual energy. So I think, but in a way, it's all connected.
Related, yeah.
It's all connected. So yeah.
Cool. I love that. As you've grown over the years, I'm sure that you've had to start delegating some pieces of your business. And as somebody who, wants to stay really authentic to who they are and to their spiritual practice, how do you keep that authenticity as you delegate some of the marketing and business efforts?
Yeah, well, I really have tried to let go of the things that, like scheduling, et cetera, that don't need a personal touch, right? But then in terms of email responses, I still do save all those from myself. Individual emails that I receive. So we'll see how long I can maintain that. That's, that can be tough. I mean, certain emails that I get repeatedly, I can just have a stock answer to. I think that's really the main thing so far. I mean, website, all that kind of stuff is all outsourced, So I tried to make it that what I'm actually focused on is stuff that is direct relationships with clients and readers, et cetera.
Yeah. And you have a book too, and I want to make sure that folks know that, because as you've been talking, you've been like saying all these things that I think are really powerful, and you've been saying them kind of fast. So am I. I'm a fast talker too. Like this episode's probably going to end and and be like a 20-minute episode. And it's going to be packed to the brim with all of this juicy, really, really good, profound stuff. So I just want to make sure that people know that they can grab your book and read it slowly.
Yeah, they can.
Can you tell folks about your book?
Yeah, it's called Chakra Empowerment for Women. And although I do work with men, this book is really focused on the chakras as a tool for emotional growth, psychological growth, unearthing those shadows that we were talking about, those unconditioned or unconscious limiting self-beliefs, etc. That's really the main way I'm relating to the chakras. It's a very how-to book with exercises to do that. And then it's also very focused on women's life transits, because a lot of people aren't aware that a woman's energy body goes through transits just like her physical body does, with menstruation every month, pregnancy, postpartum, perimenopause, menopause. And you can learn to work with those energetic cycles as a source of power, right? And the conditioning out there is really to just sort of make them as least inconvenient as possible. That's what the medicalization of those has done, right? But there's a power to them that has been a part of ancient women's traditions, and I'm trying to translate that into a chakra from a chakra perspective, almost secular, right? Outside of any particular spiritual tradition as a technology. And then the other big piece of it is sexual trauma healing, and how looking at it through the lens of the chakras, how each chakra and the energies related to it might be impacted by having experienced abuse, assault, harassment, and how you can work with them on a self-guided basis as part of your healing from that and as part of your empowerment.
Wow. I feel like we could do another episode about just this topic, and the breadth of that topic, because so many different types of systemic oppression are coming to the surface right now, as we talked about earlier in the episode. And I think there's an opportunity for some really deep healing around that. And I was going to say I feel like, but I think it's pretty darn objective at this point that women's power has been stifled consciously or unconsciously, but I tend to think it's the former. Women's power has been stifled for centuries. Mm-hmm. And so I think that the work that we can do to sort of, like, instead of being like, oh God, menstruation, it's such a pain in the ass, let's get rid of that as much as possible. Can we just take a pill to make it go away? Right. No, like I have discovered over the last several years a deep, deep power. I start to feel my cramps, and I'm like, ooh, time to go deep.
Exactly.
And yeah, I have goosebumps. So I'm so grateful that you're sort of giving a very sort of modern and accessible technology to address that. And again, I feel like we could talk for a long time just about that.
Yeah. Well, and for women out there manifesting businesses and things like that, you can use those cycles, and especially, perimenopause, menopause. I could go on and on about that. It's a huge rebirth. And I know so many women who kind of birth a whole new coaching or healing or spiritual business in their 50s because of that, because they successfully utilized the energy that comes forth at that time. So and you can do it at any age, but there's a special rebirth that can happen at that time if a woman leans into it in that way. So, yeah.
That's badass. I love it.
Yeah.
What kind of rituals and routines do you employ on a daily basis to help you sort of stay engaged with your business and your audience and resonating with them?
Well, as I mentioned, I have my own daily meditation practice, and then I have a sequence that is chakra-based that I do throughout my day. I do it at the start of every client session. It's really grounding in my body, centering in my heart, affirming my energetic boundaries, right? And then affirming my connection, that I'm a conduit for something larger, and get myself out, get my ego out of the way, right? Get any personal wounds out of the way so I can be a conduit for something larger. Those 4 steps are really my preparation in every session, and something that I turn to throughout the day if I'm feeling off, if I'm feeling triggered, right? And I really try to function to do that every time I do a social media post, every time I'm writing anything. We are putting our energy into it, right? I'm sure that's a big part of what you do, right? Anything you put out there in the world, I try to do it in a very conscious way and make sure that I know I'm very conscious about what vibrations are going into it.
Yeah, beautiful. What would you say is like your next level? Like, where you are now, you've got your book, you've got your one-on-one practice and small group practice. Like, what's the next level for you?
Well, on a very just tactical business level, I want to do larger webinars. I've been doing ones that are between 30 and 40 people, and I'd like to go ahead and do some that are much larger. And there's been a part of me that was blocking that, I realize internally. So this is personal work, because I'm very attached to working one-on-one and in these more intimate groups. And what I realized is I can do both. I can offer some where I'm limiting and I'm keeping a more intimate group, so I'm getting to know everyone in it, but I can also do larger stuff that's more speaker-based. So that's been an internal and external process coming to that decision.
That's exciting. Well, you know who to hit up if you want to get your webinar to more people.
I do. I know. I'm so glad to have learned about your work and this approach to marketing, right? Like really focusing on it from a vibrational level in a way.
I love it. My favorite thing ever. How can people find you? We've told them about the book, but what are some other ways that they can find you?
On Facebook and Instagram, I'm at Chakra Empowerment. On Twitter, I'm at Mommy Mystic. the book website is Chakra Empowerment for Women, and my client website is enlightenedenergetics.com. And all those things are linked to each other. So you get to one, you'll find all the others, basically.
Brilliant. Well, I would urge my listeners to go check you out, because I feel like you've been dropping all sorts of beautiful wisdom throughout this entire conversation.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
Opportunity to do it.
How do you, this is the last question, unless something else comes up, but how do you stay focused and aligned, especially now with this crazy time we're in, so that you're not spreading yourself too thin and missing out on what matters most, which is your own spirituality, your own self-care, and your own growth?
Oh, so important. Definitely something I have made mistakes of over the last few months in an attempt to just get more and more people in a day, took too many, ended the day snapping at everyone in my household and realizing, oh, wow, I'm off, right? I'm off. Mm-hmm. For me, nature is really important to getting out for walks and things like that. And so I think it's really just sticking to the schedule that I know works for me, the number of sessions that I can do a day, and sticking to my clearing out routines at the end of the day. I think that's really what it's about for me. And then noticing when I'm triggered and leaning into that, really facing that honestly, and working with it for myself, doing the work I do with others on myself.
Awesome. Well, this has been a beautiful conversation, and thank you so much. I really, really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. Thanks y'all for listening, and we'll see you next week.